This is how the New World Order rolls. That's how they divide and conquer. 83-year-old woman denied health care over carbon footprint. It's beginning. It's beginning. No health care for you. You're too old and you're traveling too far. But the elite are going to fly around in jet airplanes everywhere. See, the new economy is the shutdown of the economy. The new economy is the police state. The new economy is the cannibalistic economy, the post-industrial implode economy. It's all in the Club of Rome. It's all in Iron Mountain. It's all in Tragedy and Hope. George Orwell, real name Eric Blair, who worked as an imperial policeman in India from a wealthy elitist family, then got disillusioned and went to work for the communist, fighting Hitler, pre-World War II and the Spanish Civil War, and found out they were just as bad and actually working with other corrupt elements. Then he went and became homeless to experience that for a few years. And then he wrote 1984. And he's himself, because he was a propagandist in World War II at BBC. I forgot that part. The evidence shows probably MI5, definitely connected to it. And he writes about Winston himself as a nom de guerre, nom de plume, Winston in this fictitious 1984. Because before he'd written nonfiction books, but they wouldn't publish his book about where he saw Europe and the world and England going under communism and how bad it was. And in the film, the government, he finds out, has a deal with the other government. He thinks it's probably the same government to rocket attack each other, because then the government can take the public's liberties, and he figures out they blow up their own buildings to claim it's terrorist, so they have an excuse to arrest people. And he finds out it's a war against humanity. And they have gladiatorial games as well, and everybody's obsessed with the lottery, Mega Millions, because that's real, folks. That's what they really want. That's what they're really doing. Now, joining us is Patrick Henningsen, an Infowars.com investigative journalist. And he's been out in Arizona investigating Fast and Furious. More furious is the headline: U.S. soldiers trafficked arms, drugs to DEA agents posing as Los Zetas. Now, if you guys can pull it up again, the El Paso Times about drug cartels allowed to bring in tons of cocaine by ATF. All this is coming out in court because one arm doesn't know what the other arm's doing, so they'll bust these groups, or U.S. troops will get caught at the border with machine guns. They get arrested. They blow the whistle and go, I work for the government. Turns out they are working for the government, a secret op. It comes out in court. Then the government goes, well, we were just posing as Los Zetas. We'll put that article on screen. More furious. U.S. soldiers trafficked arms, drugs to DEA agents posing as Los Zetas. What did I tell you 6 years ago with our sources? There was going to be or 7 years ago now, a massive implosion in Mexico as they knocked out the other small cartels that aren't controlled by J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, Wachovia, which, by the way, it's come out now, hundreds of billions laundered by Wells Fargo, didn't get in trouble, Bloomberg, AP, Reuters. Again, this is how they operate. Just like Goldman Sachs, sex trafficking. UN, sex trafficking. Well, they have diplomatic immunity, so it's okay. And if you scroll down on the article, you can see 3 of the gentlemen who were reportedly hitmen with the U.S. military. What have I told you over and over again? It's mainly Army. There are tens of thousands of wet work hitmen. And it's not the Mexican mafia. It's not any of these groups. It's U.S. Army, then some Marines, then some Navy SEALs. They busted Navy SEALs trying to ship hand grenades, rocket launchers, and weapons out of Phoenix down there. Turned out they were working for the government. There's a covert war. And that's a message to you. If you work for the U.S. government, which means Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, and you're caught, they're just going to say you're a drug dealer. Okay? Now, all this has come out in court. When they bust Los Zetas, when they bust Sinaloa, shipping in tons of cocaine, they always say, well, here's my national security letter. I work. Here's their names. And Homeland Security comes in and says, it's true, national security on the trial. And they say, that's inadmissible. You're still going to prison. And they're like, we worked for you. They're like, once you hit prison, we're going to have you shanked to death, okay? But I worked for you. I did everything. And they're like, hey, no honor among thieves. Just like the people that got caught torturing, Bush had him sent to prison, even though he'd ordered the torturing in the memos. Then he wrote a book admitting he ordered the torture. I'm going to order the torture, and if you happen to get caught doing it, raping little kids like they had them doing, that's in the handbooks now. That's what Land of the Free, Home of the Brave does, run by Goldman Sachs, is rape children with battery acid. Go read it in the Army's report. Go read it. This is the hardcore, pure evil you're dealing with. Okay? Now setting up domestic checkpoints, hardened checkpoints, set to pass a bill that you can't travel, and it's going to be internally. I've read their plans. I've warned you. There are UN signs now, UN subgroups up in baby blue and white at our greenbelts in Austin. The private property they're stealing has them up. They're putting fences and cameras aimed out at the invasive humans. Okay? I'm living it. 80% increase in power prices they announced for the earth, really just for the foreign bankers. I'm living it. You're going to live it. I'm here to break your trance. Admit it. Admit the government's not legitimate and it's pure evil. Admit it. Admit it before it's too late. Admit it. Say no. We've got to go to grassroots. We've got to start going to underground economy. We've got to start just banner hangs everywhere, info war everywhere, whatever you got to do to get the word out and shake people out of the trance. I am ordering the info warriors. If you care about your family and your life, you better launch operations peacefully in total resistance to the New World Order now. We got John Perkins, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, coming up in the third hour. Right now is Patrick Henningsen joining us with this big breaking news with links to the federal court rulings and even little blurbs in mainstream media. Patrick Henningsen, incredible information. We already knew it, but here it is in plain view as we learn the government's arming the drug gangs domestically. You got military hit teams everywhere, mass slaughter, sex trafficking, just pure evil, 110%. Break it down for us.
This whole story, when I first stumbled across this a few days ago, is like a rabbit hole. It's like a supermarket crime novel, only that it's actually happening. This is the most incredible thing about it. So what you've got here is a freelance hit squad made up of active duty U.S. Army and a couple of his close relations, and this is between South Carolina and Texas, okay? And this guy isn't a member of just any Army brigade. It turns out he's a member of the 4th Brigade of the 4th Infantry Group. So he's a member of the 4th Brigade Combat Team of the 4th Infantry Division. Okay, and they're doing three-year cycles together as a unit. And you know, we all know about the opium problem in Afghanistan. You've covered it really well. In fact, between Kurt Nimmo and myself, it's really hard to find any really comprehensive writing on this subject in the last 2 years. So I've linked to some of Kurt Nimmo's research on this because, frankly, there's no one really wants to talk about it very much, aside from Infowars.com and a few other outlets. But we all know about the opium. Now, this guy, Kevin Corley, arranged a 500-pound marijuana shipment, which the DEA apparently picked up early in the sting. They didn't arrest these guys. They let them drive forward. They caught the truck behind them with 500 pounds of marijuana. Okay, 500 pounds of marijuana. Okay, where the flag went up for me is, and I can't obviously prove this, but certainly we have links with Afghanistan. Guess who the #1 marijuana producing country in the world today is? Take a wild guess. It's Afghanistan. It's not Mexico. It's not Jamaica. It's Afghanistan. So,
and of course, it wasn't until the liberation happened, and it was only 10% of opium. Now it's 92% or more of the opium, and the troops admit they grow it.
Yeah, and you know, you've got some big Air Force, military Air Force and Army and Marine bases dotted all over the country. And we all know from Vietnam that the longer we stayed in there, in Vietnam for between 10 and 12 years, and that allowed people to make links to form relationships for certain cadres within the military to arrange their own kind of entrepreneurial activities. Okay, and that that's not out of the realms of possibility in this particular situation. Did this 500 pounds of pot come from Mexico, or did it come from Arizona to, say, Fort Bliss or a place like this? I can't say for sure. But I've laid this all out, Alex, because I think hopefully someone else is going to come along and put the dots together. I'm limited in what I can find out as far as...
This is exactly the intel we get from these other federal cases where they let Los Zetas and Sinaloa ship cocaine in, quote, for information.
Sure. I mean, I did an article a couple of years ago, which was called Rendition, where the war on drugs meets the war on terror. And that was really centered around that whole story of the CIA rendition flight. Was a Gulfstream jet, which crashed in Mexico and had something like 3 tons of pure Colombian uncut cocaine on board.
Yeah, 3.5 tons.
Yeah, and so they matched the tail numbers from this Gulfstream jet with the private air contractor to rendition flights that were going everywhere on the planet. We're talking about black sites in Eastern Europe, refueling in England and Ireland.
No, that's it. The government aircraft just land everywhere with the cocaine, heroin, little kids, and it all comes out. Just type in UN, child sex trafficking, because sometimes there are good people that blow the whistle when there's huge C-130s with toddlers being loaded on, and there's always somebody who freaks out. They usually whack them real quick. So, I mean, it's just absolute pure evil.
That's what the war on terror was in the early stages of the war on terror, where they were rendering. The media made a big deal, and the liberal kind of outcry was, they're taking all these terrorists on and putting black sacks over their heads and ferrying them around the world. But it wasn't the terrorists that they were ferrying around. They were just goat herders and taxi drivers. There were drugs, kids, and God knows what on board any of those.
That's right. Stay there. The guy that wrote Jawbreaker, I had the CIA section chief on. He admitted they would only grab innocent people. And literally, it was just a prop to ship the drugs.
On the GCN Radio Network.
We're going to have Patrick Henningsen a little bit with us into the next hour. Then I've got a bunch of other news. We're going to open the phones up. John Perkins is also joining us on this Thursday edition. A couple plugs here that tie into news items. We finally got a Roku box at our house out in the country. It's incredible. It gets every channel, movies, you name it. And Prisonplanet.tv has been on Roku for about, I don't know, 6 months. Been on Boxy a few months. If you're a Prisonplanet.tv member, we're trying to put it on all the little box top, internet TV interfaces. And my wife started like laughing when I was in the bathroom, shaving. And I said, "What?" And I walked out. And she was saying, "My gosh, look at you when you go to the site. I mean, I look like Jabba the Hutt or something. I mean, I've got like triple chins." And now, I mean, I still need to lose some more weight, but it is a night and day difference. Just an absolute night and day difference. And I did it with the same exercise I was doing previous to in the last 4 or 5 months, finally taking my own advice and using Tangy Tangerine Complete Multivitamin Mineral Complex, the best out there, cannot be matched. Also other great